I didn't realize it right away. At first, he was just a man. A passerby, tall, thin, long arms, always in a dark jacket. I saw him one evening by the metro entrance. A few days later, near the grocery store. Then again, standing by the corner of my apartment building while I stepped outside for a smoke. He was never close, always across the street. Sometimes still, sometimes walking slowly, like he had nowhere to be. But by the end of the week, I caught a pattern. He was always there. Different nights, different places, but always there. I decided to test it. Next week, I deliberately changed my walking routes. I took random streets, cut through alleys, doubled back, pretended to wait in shop windows. Every time he would appear, not immediately, but within minutes, I'd see him in a reflection, or across the street, walking at a strange pace, his stride a little too long, arms too relaxed. I never told anyone. It sounded paranoid, even to me. But I started writing it down, where and when I saw him. 7:26 p.m., outside the pharmacy. 7:42, crossed the avenue near the coffee shop. 8:05, standing by the underpass entrance. I made a log, just to prove to myself I wasn't imagining it. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. That night, I didn't wait. I grabbed an old action camera I'd kept in a drawer, slipped it into my backpack, and stepped outside. The air was cold and sharp. The city eerily quiet, except for distant hums of traffic. I started walking the route, the exact one he always appeared on, and there he was, standing across the street, watching. I quickened my pace, turned down a side alley. He followed, not rushing, just steady, like a shadow glued to me. I darted behind parked cars, slipped through narrow passages, but he never lost me. Finally, he entered a crumbling apartment building, the one just 3 blocks from my place. I hesitated, then followed inside. The stairwell smelled of damp concrete and rust. I climbed, each step echoing too loud in the silence. On the 3rd floor, a door was cracked open. I pushed it. The room was empty, except for the walls. They were covered in photographs, all of me. Walking, sleeping, drinking coffee, walking the streets. Some photos were clearly taken from inside my apartment, looking through windows, behind curtains. On a table lay a map, street names, times, routes, dates, and at the bottom, subject entering phase 2, contact imminent. I left without looking back. I moved away. Changed my number, my job, everything. But sometimes, when the city lights blur and the streets empty, I see him again, closer than before, and I know this isn't over. I came home early that night, just after 7. The streets had that hollow weekday quiet. Empty sidewalks, dim windows, the distant sound of traffic, like a restless ocean. I made tea, sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, a habit, I told myself. I'd check my email, scroll for a bit, then get some sleep. But then I saw a file in my recent documents list, home_roots.log. I didn't make that dot. The name looked like something I'd write, but I hadn't. Not even by accident. I opened it. Inside was a plain text list, dates, times, street names, turns I had taken, shops I had stopped at, specific, intersections I had crossed. It was a perfect log of my movements for the past 2 weeks, not just the places I usually went, all of them, even the weird detours I'd taken on a whim. Streets I hadn't walked in years. A shortcut I'd used once when I thought someone was tailing me. It knew everything, and at the bottom of the file, a line in bold, behavioral deviations began on November 3rd. Continue observation. Do not engage. I froze. My apartment was silent, but I felt watched inside, like someone had just closed a door behind me, and I hadn't heard it. I unplugged the Wi-Fi, yanked the webcam from its mount, checked the hallway. Nothing. I searched the place, every corner, every drawer, every vent. No hidden cameras, no microphones, not even a loose screw or a moved object. I couldn't find anything out of place. When I returned to the laptop, the file was gone. Just ... Deleted, no trace, not in trash, not in temp folders. I ran recovery software. Nothing. But I had seen it that night. I didn't sleep. I kept the lights on, sat by the window, watched the street, and just after 3 a.m., he appeared again, across the road, not moving, standing still under the flickering street lamp, exactly where I always passed on my way home. I wasn't looking for anything unusual. It was just another late walk home after work, cutting through familiar streets in the edge of the industrial district. The city felt half asleep, orange sodium lights buzzing overhead, occasional traffic humming in the distance, and the echo of my own footsteps bouncing off shuttered storefronts. Midnight in summer. The air was still, and I had music playing quietly in my earbuds. That's when I saw it folded once, resting neatly on the pavement near a bench. A plain white note. No envelope, no markings, just placed there, like someone had gently set it down for someone specific. Not dropped, not littered. Intentional. I paused, looked around. No one nearby. I picked it up, written in thin, careful handwriting was a short message. 42 Delaney Street, 2:12:40 a.m. That's it. No explanation. No name. No signature. Something about it gave me a strange chill. It didn't feel like a prank. It wasn't the usual kind of nonsense you might expect on a city street. It was almost surgical in its precision. Just an address. Just a time. And I checked my phone. It was 12:31. I stood there for a minute, debating. Delaney Street wasn't far, maybe 5 blocks east. It was mostly empty warehouses and old delivery garages. Not residential, not commercial. Dead at night. I could have ignored it, tossed the note in the nearest trash can. But instead, I started walking. I'm not sure why. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I just wanted to know what kind of person writes a message like that and leaves it on the sidewalk for a stranger. The closer I got, the more uncomfortable I felt. Delaney Street wasn't well lit. Most of the old buildings were windowless, tagged with graffiti or covered in plywood. No traffic here, no cameras, no noise. And then I saw it. A black SUV was parked beneath a broken streetlight, its engine off, all windows tinted. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and wet metal. Across the street was an open alley leading between 2 buildings, and there, just inside the shadows, stood 2 figures, no talking, no phones, just standing. I stopped at the corner and pulled back behind a tree. I knew this was stupid. I knew I had no business being here, but I couldn't look away. At exactly 12:40 a.m., another car arrived. Sleek, quiet, new. The driver stepped out, holding something small and square. A briefcase, maybe. He handed it to one of the waiting figures. No words, they examined the contents. Under a phone flashlight, nodded, and handed something back, a sealed envelope. And then, as the man turned to return to his car, he paused. He looked up straight, toward me, like he knew I was watching. I ducked back behind the tree, heart pounding. I couldn't breathe for a moment. When I dared to peek again, the SUV's door had opened, and someone else was stepping out. He wasn't part of the exchange. He hadn't moved until now. But he walked into the street, slow and deliberate, scanning the sidewalks. Scanning for me. That was when I turned and ran. I didn't go home that night. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs buckled, turning down random side streets, cutting through alleys, always listening for footsteps, for an engine, for the sound of tires behind me. But nothing followed, at least not right away. I ended up sitting on the steps outside an all-night laundromat, drenched in sweat, pretending to scroll my phone like I belonged there. I told myself it was nothing, a misunderstanding. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe it wasn't me they were looking at. But deep down, I knew. That moment when the man looked straight at me, it wasn't a glance. It was recognition. He saw me. I waited until sunrise before I went home. And even then, I circled the block twice to make sure no cars were parked outside that I didn't recognize. I didn't sleep. I sat in my kitchen with the lights off, curtains drawn, phone in hand. The note was still in my pocket. That crumpled square of white paper. like a fuse I shouldn't have lit. By the next evening, I started to believe maybe I'd gotten away with it, until I saw the man with the shaved head. He was standing across the street from my apartment building, wearing a beige windbreaker, sunglasses, and holding nothing. No phone, no bag, just standing. At first I thought I was being paranoid, but every time I checked, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, he was still there, motionless, waiting. When I finally worked up the nerve to look again, he was gone. I told myself he was just some guy, not the same one I saw get out of the SUV, not someone connected to what I'd witnessed. But 2 nights later, I saw him again, this time closer. 1 block away, leaning against a traffic pole, watching the intersection, and then again, in the reflection of a bus window, on the other side of the platform at the train station. Never approaching, never speaking, just being there, watching. And then things got worse. One morning I unlocked my front door to head to work, and there, slid under the doorframe, was a photo, grainy, black and white, but clearly me, crouched behind the tree on Delaney Street. My back turned, my body frozen mid-peak. The photo had a single word written on the back, saw. That was when the fear became something else, not just anxiety, but certainty. I'd stepped into something I didn't understand, something organized, something real. I stopped going to work, stopped checking my phone. I taped black trash bags over all the windows, kept the lights off, slept with a kitchen knife under my pillow. Though I barely slept at all, I considered going to the police. But how do you explain something like this? That I found a note, followed it, watched a silent exchange between 3 people, and now I was being tracked. They'd think I was making it up. Or worse, what if they already knew? After all, the people in that alley weren't amateurs. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. Everything was precise, timed, silent. I started writing everything down. What I saw, the note, the license plates, though I remembered none. I made copies and hid them around my apartment, uploaded some of it to cloud storage under a fake email, because if something happened to me, I wanted someone, anyone, to find it. And then last night, the doorbell rang once, at 3:12 a.m., and I don't have a doorbell. I didn't move for hours after the bell rang. I stayed on the floor of my apartment, barely breathing, knife in hand, eyes fixed on the door. No footsteps followed, no knocking, just that one clear ring, sharp, unnatural, as if it came from inside the building, and I don't have a doorbell. At some point, I must have fallen asleep out of exhaustion, because when I woke, it was daylight. The first thing I saw was the note. It had been slid under the door again, same paper, same careful handwriting. You have until 12:40 tonight. Return what you saw. That was all. I stared at it for a long time, heart frozen. Return what you saw. What the hell did that mean? I hadn't taken anything. I hadn't spoken to anyone. I'd just watched. And yet they were treating it like I'd stolen something. I packed a bag, threw in my passport, cash, the printed pages of my notes. I didn't know where I was going, just away from the city, away from Delaney Street. I shoved the knife in too, just in case. I tried to leave before dark, but something kept me inside. Paranoia, hesitation. And then, just before 9, the lights in my apartment died, followed by my phone signal, and then I heard it, the elevator. I live on the 7th floor. The old building hums whenever the lift rises, groaning, clicking slowly as it ascends. It stopped on 6. I stood in the hallway, every part of me buzzing with cold panic, listening. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. Then the power came back. I don't remember running. I don't remember grabbing my keys. Just that sudden animal need to get out. I took the stairs, down all 7 flights, out into the street, and froze. A car was idling across the road. Same black SUV, and standing outside it, under the flickering street lamp, was the man with the shaved head. He wasn't looking at me. This time, he was looking down at something in his hand. He opened the rear door, and without meaning to, I moved closer. Inside, the seats were spotless. Black leather. No one else there, but what I saw in the center. Sitting neatly on the seat, in perfect silence, was me, a photograph, fresh, sharp. It showed me standing at my kitchen window that morning, pulling back the curtain. They'd been inside. I don't know how I walked away. Maybe they let me. Maybe it was part of some cruel rhythm, but I ran. I left the city, took back roads, stayed in motels. Never in one place for more than a night. That was 2 weeks ago. This morning, at a rest stop outside. A town I've never heard of, I bought a bottle of water. I stepped outside to stretch, and on the ground by the trash bin was another piece of paper, folded once, white plain. I already knew what it would say before I picked it up. 12:41, -42, Delaney Street. Same time, same address. Again, like it. Never ended, like I never left. And I think I understand now. It wasn't just a trap, it was an invitation. And once you see it, once you go, they never stop watching, never stop waiting for you to come back.